I'm Pia Clerté. I'm a sport shooter from Sweden. I'm here at the World Shoot IPSC Rifle in Sweden, Karlskoga, Sweden. We are hosting the first World Shoot in Sweden ever, which is quite big for us, so it's great. So I started shooting IPSC in 2014 and rifle in 2016, so I'm quite new to this sport, but I just love it. It's a great sport because you get to meet a lot of new friends all the time because you squad with different people. You get to meet friends you made last time at the match again, which is great, and it's a very helpful community. Everybody is trying to help each other out and give tips and tricks to each other and share. I also love sport shooting because it's a moment where you have to be very focused on what you're doing. So you just have to let go of all the normal problems or troubles you might have and focus on what you're doing right now and on the stage in front of you. So that's really nice, a nice feature of the sport actually. So in Sweden you have to have a purpose to own a gun, and that goes for all types of guns, so firearms, so rifles or handguns. So for rifles, obviously you can be a hunter, and then you have to have a hunter's license first, and then you can apply for the firearms license. For sport shooting, it's a little bit different because you have to be active in a club, and you have to have a club actually telling the authorities that you have a need for this firearm. So for instance, in IPSC you have to be active for a year before you can get your first handgun license, and 2 years before you can get your first rifle license. What happens is that when you do sport shooting, you obviously take the IPSC course, which is kind of a, what do you say, hands-on course, but also a lot of rules that you need to know. And once you have passed that course, you're good to start practicing and start competing right away, even if you don't own your own firearm. The club that you belong to will be able to lend your firearm under supervision. The different firearms that you can own in Sweden are obviously hunting rifles, anything that goes for hunting, but they are limited to what kind of hunting you want to do, so they have to fit into that category. For the sport shooting firearms, it is going to be connected to the type of sport shooting that you're doing. IPSC is quite open, so you can have most types of semi-automatic firearms actually for the purpose of IPSC. In Sweden you can also have a license for a fully automated firearm, but it's very restrictive and it's limited now to kind of old licenses that are still there from way back in the time. And mostly you see elderly men shooting this sport today. So no renewal of those licenses. Well, we still have a problem with the EU gun ban for Sweden and across Europe obviously, but in Sweden has not been implemented yet. It's right now on the way, so to back up a little bit, when they started talking about the EU gun ban in 2015, it was a total ban of semi-automatic firearms. They have changed that a little bit throughout all the negotiations and all that has taken place since. And today, of course, it's been voted in the EU and we need to implement it in Sweden. There would be a way to implement it in Sweden without much impact to my sport actually. However, the proposal that's on the table today will pose some really big problems for me as a sport shooter, especially since I'm also traveling abroad with my firearm. To travel with my firearm today it's no problem. It is in the EU categorization category B, but what the Swedish government wants to do is to place it into category A, and that is actually not allowed for civilian use. It's only by exception. But the big problem with that is actually that the all the airline companies do not allow you to travel with a category A firearm. So any international competitions will be, we can't do them any longer. I've been active in this gun law debate since 2016 and that was even actually before I owned my own rifle. Just because I started it up, I found it amazing as a sport and I wanted to continue, but there was a threat against it. And so they wanted to ban my sporting equipment, and for no benefit at all, because it's already illegal to be a terrorist or kill people, and any terrorists or any criminals, they wouldn't actually apply for a license first. So that's the problem here. So what I'm trying to do today is I'm trying to inform the politicians about the consequences of the decisions they are going to make. Because I don't think they realize how far this would go if they actually implemented it the way it's on the table today. So that is what I'm trying to do today. I have on Thursday here at the World Shoot, actually, I have a day with the politicians. For now I have 13 or 14 people coming from different political parties in Sweden to hear about the sport, hear about the repercussions of the EU gun ban, and to understand what the consequences would be if they actually vote this through in the parliament. And this is very important, because if they can actually see what we're doing, and if they can see what's it all about, I think they can make better decisions. So what I'm trying to do is kind of directly influence them, and everybody can do that actually, because our politicians in Sweden are very accessible. They're all on Twitter, most of them at least, so they are on Twitter. You can reach out to them, and most of them actually answer you on Twitter. You can send emails to them trying to explain what this sport means to you and why you don't want them to take it away from you. And of course, anytime anybody is writing something about gun laws or about the sport, anything like that, share it on social media, because when you share it, it will reach people that are outside this universe of sport shooting or hunting, and reach more people that aren't aware of the problem today. And most people, when you talk to them that aren't in this universe of sport shooting or hunting, the people that are not legal gun owners, they don't really know what the proposition from the government is and what the consequences would be. Besides the EU Firearms Directive, we still have things in the Swedish legislation that could actually be changed to ease up a little bit for the Swedish legal firearm owners. Because yes, we have a problem in Sweden with shootings in the streets, and it's going up all the time, and it's really a high level. Those shootings are being done with illegal guns. They are smuggled in across the border, and they're being used by criminals. These are not any guns coming from any legal firearm owners. So we could actually ease up some of the very restrictive gun laws that we have. And I'm not saying take everything away. We still need kind of, restrictions, that's for sure. But we have today, for instance, 5-year licenses on handguns. So that means every 5 years you have to reapply for your handgun again, if you own one today. And it was supposed to be just a formality, just some paperwork that you had to send in to the police. But we have seen that this is a real big problem, because we have, for instance, the 8-time Swedish champion, Robert Andersson, who applied for exactly the same gun that he owned already, because he needed a second one when he was going to the European Championship. Because you invest a lot of money to go to a championship, and if the gun breaks down, of course you want to have a second one. And they told him, no, sorry, you're not active enough. And this is something they took in when they took this notion of 5-year licenses. You have to be active. And so if an 8-time Swedish champion going to the European Championship is not active enough, well, I think nobody is actually, because I don't know what standards applies actually when you are talking about the needed activity in the sport. So 5-year licenses could be taken off the table. We also have a notion in the Swedish gun laws, which are, we call it a closet, so garderob in Swedish, and it's actually a notion of how many guns you can own. So kind of figuratively speaking, in your closet. We don't keep them in a closet, we keep them under, of course, lock and in a safe, but that's kind of the notion. So there's a limited number of firearms you can own as a hunter, and there's another limit for the sport shooters, which means that if you're active in several types of sport shooting, not just rifle or not just shotgun, you will very fast achieve or come up to that limit, which means that, well, you can't apply for any more firearms, even if you want to do the sport. Thank you to all of you who are sharing my articles, who are sharing what I'm saying, and really participating in this gun lobbying that we're doing. We don't have any companies behind us, no money, nothing like that. It's just the grassroots trying to influence the politicians. And it's very important that we keep this level up, keep sharing, keep talking about this subject, and making sure that we reach out and we can keep this on the agenda for the politicians. So thank you, everybody.